How do you see China? Um, I've always been interested in how people see and what people see. Very few people see what I see. And so I put together these slides, and I've invited friends over to the house, and I've shown them the pictures. And several of them had told me, oh, I was in China. And so I've asked them, what were their impressions of China? And some were there a few years ago, and some were there many years ago. And when I came in today, I met a lady. I didn't just meet the lady. I met her when I first got to Spokane 34 years ago. But she told me that she was in China in 1946. And so people that were in China 4 years before I was in China, when I showed them the Chinese pictures, they said, that's not the China that I was in. China has really changed in the last 4 years. So, golly, can I have a house light? Is that going to cause a problem?
No.
Because I want to ask, before we start, I want to ask people that have been to China, give me a minute or two, something short, a couple of sentences on your impressions of China when you were there. I see several people in the audience that have been to China and been to the been to the East in the audience. So if there's anybody that's been to China, now let's open it up further than that. If there's anybody that has a mental image of China, feel free, okay? Because I'm really interested in how you see China and how you saw China, okay? So now, I don't want to have to call on you. I know a few of you have been there. Okay, here's a hand right here.
Yeah, well, I was there in 2007, and then I was there June this year, 2010, and it was much, much more modern than I ever imagined, and especially in June this year. It was just amazing, vibrant and modern in central Beijing. It was way, way more new and clean and exciting than I would ever imagined it.
Okay, someone else? Right here.
I got to see the Chinese border from across a valley 47 years ago. They said we did not dare go any closer because it wasn't safe. This was in the middle of the Cold War. This was in Hong Kong Northern Territories. So I have a very weak image of it, just seeing side of hillsides or mountains on the other side of a valley.
Okay.
I saw some of the very poor villages where, the homes were like all connected, like apartments, but just like one big room they had with these enormous TVs. And yet the pigs were running around, the chickens were running around, and the kids were running around. So it was the contrast of these enormous TVs and this just abject poverty is what I saw in some of the little villages, which is in contrast to Beijing and Shanghai, which was absolutely, I've never seen buildings like were in Shanghai, which were just absolutely phenomenal. The architecture, gorgeous buildings.
Anyone else?
Sure. I was in China about 10 years ago, and my overall impression is it's the most untidy place I've ever been in my life. And since that was not long after I'd been in Japan, the contrast was enormous. The other things that got to me were the tremendous population density in the cities. I hated Beijing. The air was brown, you could hardly see down the street. And yet if you went to the coastal area, I went to a town called Qingdao. It's only 10 years old, a complete difference. Very modern, very clean, and yet even that had strange things. One of my Chinese colleagues taught me to look inside the city hall. And he pointed out that one of the things you'll notice that is different here from the West, there's no built-in air conditioning or heating system. And yet this is a big, expensive new public building in a city 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Plug-in heaters. Cold winters in China.
Okay. Okay. I just got the signal.
China,
Go ahead.
1947. And we'd gone over from Kimpel Air Force Base in Korea. There were 3 or 4 of us Red Cross women. It was a Northwest, one of their first flights to China, Northwest Airlines. We stayed at a hotel on Bubbling Well Road. I don't recall the name of the hotel. I'm doing good to recall Bubbling Well Road. And I did have an experience of having a wristwatch stolen off of my arm as we rode in rickshaws. There were 3 or 4 of us. An interesting thing, people in the Orient, which is what it was called in those days, had the experience maybe of seeing African American soldiers, but they'd not seen African American women. And believe you me, yes, believe me, when folks saw us for the first time, we would look and then there would be a crowd in front of us. It started out in back, then it'd be in front of us and they would just be looking back at us. Because there were 3 of us of different shapes, color, and we were very courteous to them as they were to us. But I had gone to China, to Shanghai. That's the only place where we could go because General Chiang Kai-shek was being run out of China, or up in China. The communists were taking over. And my purpose in going, I wanted a jade ring. And that's as good a reason as any to go. And so we went into, we'd been given a contact from other people who had gone into Shanghai of a jeweler. And I bought the jade ring, and I have it still to this day. It's a Burmese jade, but oh, I was younger. And that's all, Lloyd, that's enough.
Well, 40 years ago, I was in class with a photography student named Pak Chi Lau. That's Pak Chi there. Pak Chi called me up in late 2007, and he says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Watching television." He said, "There's nothing on in television. Come meet me in China." And so I immediately scrambled up passport shots and everything, and my wife and I, we went to meet Pak Chi in China. When Pak Chi came to the United States, Pak Chi he'd heard about San Francisco's Chinatown, but he hadn't seen it. So we were then living in Santa Barbara. I was going to Brooks Institute, photography. And so we went up to San Francisco. I took him up to Chinatown in San Francisco and showed him Chinatown. So Pak Chi disappeared. So later on when I caught up with him at the motel, I said to Pak Chi, "Where were you?" Pak Chi says, "I speak Chinese. I got invited into homes." And so later on, Pak Chi and I, we went to Tijuana together. And Pak Chi said to me, he says, Baba, can you get these people to come out in the sunlight where we could take their picture? Well, I don't speak Spanish, and the people were Chinese, and I didn't speak Chinese. But sign language and so forth, I got the people to come out in the sunlight so we could take their picture. So after I took my picture, I turned around looking for Pak Chi to take Pak Chi's picture. Pak Chi was in the people's house. So anyway, I didn't know what he was doing or why he was there. Later on, after the Vietnam War ended, Pak Chi called me up and he said, let's go to Camp Pendleton. There's some Vietnamese refugees coming back. And so we went to Camp Pendleton, and among the Vietnamese refugees, Pak Chi found some Chinese. So Pak Chi said again, he said, Bob, get them to come out into the light where we could take their pictures. So I don't speak Vietnamese and I don't speak Chinese, but with some hand language, sign language, I got them to come out and I took my picture, and Pak Chi was not there either. Well, what I discovered is, for the last 40 years, Pak Chi's been going into homes all over the world, anywhere he could find Chinese people living, and taking pictures of the interior of their houses. And so, the museum and the People's Government there in China invited Pak Chi to show those pictures. So at the museum, Pak Chi showed over 200 photographs that he had taken over the last 40 years in the homes of the Chinese. Okay? And Pak Chi was big deal in the newspaper. He was on every television station. He was on the newspapers. And so he was busy while we were there, so he gave me his son Tyler, 19 years old, raised in Kansas City, Missouri. But Tyler had traveled all these years, for 19 of his years, with Pak Chi to take these pictures. And so Tyler was my guide. Tyler says, where you want to go, what you want to do. Tyler had no political agenda. He didn't have any reason to show me anything or not show me anything. He just took me. We just went out and wandered around together. And the lady here in the center, sitting next to Pak Chi, we bought paper. Pak Chi hadn't seen it. We brought him the paper. He had a 6-page spread of his work in the newspaper that day, so we brought him a copy. And the lady sitting next to him, her name is Smile, and that's the editor of his book. Pak Chi's published 2 books and whatnot on this work of China. The last one is The Flow. He visited college and gave lectures while he was there. And he took us to this college here. And what I discovered is, gee, these students are just like my students. Okay. And that's a picture from one of his first books on China. That's a picture from San Francisco, interior in San Francisco. Okay, Pak Chi is the insider and I'm the outsider. Well, you can't read that, but I'll tell you what it is. It gives a little bit an artist statement of why I photograph. I'm from Chicago, born and raised in Chicago, lived on the west side of Chicago. There's a freeway that runs from the west suburbs, which is called the Congress Expressway, and it runs to downtown Chicago. And it's like a valley, and the freeway's at the bottom of these high inclines on both sides. So from up on the top on the sides, we could see the people going to work, the suburban people commuting to work. And the neighborhood that I lived in once was a Jewish community. Well, they still own everything in the neighborhood, but they don't live in the neighborhood anymore. But we would watch all I call the movers and shakers and whatnot going to work from there. And I'm living in the inner city community, poor community, and I thought that if those people knew how we lived, they would make decisions and whatnot to change things. I know we couldn't change nothing, but I thought those people in the suburbs would change things, okay? So there were riots in Chicago in the 1960s, and the newspapers and magazines came, and they wanted bodyguards. They hired what they thought were the young toughs of the neighborhood to show them around, carry their camera cases and so forth. So I got one of those jobs, and I carried them around. I took them to all these places. See this? See this? I showed them all these neat people, dignified, proud people, living in spite of the odds. And when the stuff was published, there weren't photographs that I had shown them. I saw all these poor, depressed, beat-up people and whatnot. So I said, I think I could do a better job of it myself if I took the pictures. And I took the pictures, and nobody was interested in seeing my pictures. I then got up here and I opened up several galleries, and I began to bring in people that saw things like I saw. I brought in photographers from all over the country, and I showed this work. I said, now, I wasn't good enough to do it. Here are people that can do it real good, and they got all the books published, and they're on all the university staffs and whatnot. Maybe people would see it. Well, how naive I was. It's all about vested interests. It wasn't in their vested interest to change anything. That's why they didn't change anything. And I think I'm a pretty broad-minded person. I don't think I have a prejudiced bone in my body. I've had international students from all over the world living with me for the last 30 years. Have one there now from Uganda. I've heard when they come home in the evening, you know, the questions that Americans could have asked them, you know. They ask the African students, you know, do you all wear clothes? You know, what kind of house do you live in? Do you live in a hut? So when I got to China, I said, I'm smarter than all that. There'll be no stupid questions coming here, okay? And so the first thing we did, we landed in Hong Kong. That was the first stop. We stayed a couple of days in Hong Kong. And when I got off in the airport, there was a sign. It said, visitors this way, locals this way. Cool. And it was like Los Angeles airport, any other big airport. And I was quite comfortable and whatnot. And then I went over to Guangzhou, mainland China. And in Guangzhou, when I got off, there was a sign that said, foreigners this way, locals this way. I said, uh-oh, there's been a change. And the walls were painted kind of an institutional blue-green, kind of remind me of Cook County Hospital in Chicago. And there were some stalls where there might have been shops or something, but they were empty. And there were security guards and so forth, and they were taller than the Chinese that I'm used to seeing. I thought they were all little people. But anyway, big guys and whatnot, you know. And every preconceived prejudice that was deep down in my body rose to the top. I began to say, well, I hope my papers are in order. I don't want to be in jail in this town. And they stamped the passport, and then these doors opened. And I stepped through the doors, and it was in color. And I swear, I thought it was going to be in black and white. You see, because these were the images that I had in my head of China. In spite of all the Chinese students that I've interacted with at the university, these were my pictures. And I was a pro-Maoist. I mean, he was taking on the establishment, you know, and that was the 60s, and I was taking it on too, okay? The civil rights movement was strong and whatnot in those days, and I went and got me a Chinese jacket. The Black Panther Party was selling little red books, and I bought Mao's red book, and I even got a little red star to put on my hat, and I had my uniform. But when they opened those doors, I thought I was in Las Vegas. The neon signs and the color and every capitalist product you would imagine, Chanel perfume or whatever, I don't know all the stuff, but all that stuff that we see. And so old images and old ideas. Okay, now I'm not claiming to know anything about China. I was there for 3 weeks. I'm no authority and whatnot on China. Okay? That little red circle is all that I've seen of China. Okay? And I've been trying to do some reading, and I've talked to some other people, and now when I hear it on the radio, China, my ears pop up, and I've been listening, but that is all that I know of China. Okay? So don't ask me nothing about no place else. Okay? Now, over on the side here, that's the Pearl River. Okay? Now, I'm from Chicago, and I had been back home in 2007. Okay? Now, skyscrapers are no new deal and whatnot to me. In Chicago, I've been looking at skyscrapers all my life from the inner city, looking downtown, those tall buildings downtown. And anyway, in Chicago, the downtown area, I say it's about a mile wide. It runs from about the lake, about 8 blocks or so, going west. Then they run from north to south, maybe 4 or 5 miles, okay? That's about it. You can go through downtown Chicago in a car in no time, okay? Now, when I got to China and we started driving around through those skyscrapers there, and they went on and on and on and on, and when I thought I got to the country, and I see some little rural area, little farm area, so forth, lo and behold, here would be a couple of these big skyscrapers even out there. Okay? So first thing I did was I did a survey. Okay? I wanted to see what I was going to see. So we hopped in the car, driver drove me around, and I took my little camera there, and I took pictures. And little cheapy camera. Everything you're going to see is done with that little cheapy camera. Is my present employer in the audience? Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you something about him. Well, I had some remodeling done on my house. And the contractor came and he did a real nice job. And one day he wasn't coming, he didn't show up. He said he was in court. And I said, oh, drunken driving or something, huh? I'm thinking, He said, no, I've been testifying. He says, I'm a professional witness. I testify on construction fraud. And he hired me and whatnot. So I've been doing, you watch television, CSI. So I am now a CSI photographer, and I look for construction defects and frauds. So I go on the site, and on the site there will be a lawyer from both sides. Lawyers will all have an assistant, so there'll be 2 assistants, 2 lawyers. There will be an architect, and there will be an engineer, and then there will be construction people. And we walk around these houses, and we're walking around a multi-million-dollar house right now, and we go into a room, and they talk about the problem on the other side of that wall. And they tear open the wall, and then I take a picture before they tear it up. They tear it up, I take a picture inside the wall. They fix it back up, and I take a picture of it fixed back up. Okay? So the first time I went with my little camera there. I thought the camera took pretty good pictures. But he told me, he said, Bob, we're out here with professional people, and Bob, your equipment has to look a little bit more professional. I said, I said, are you satisfied with the picture? Oh, the pictures are fine, Bob. But, you know, we have to look professional, Bob. So, Bob, I said, I hope you're going to pay me enough. So Bob bought a professional looking camera. So now I gave that one to my nephew. And so now Bob's got a professional looking camera. But so I'm sorry if the pictures aren't to the best of quality, because that was before I knew I needed a professional camera. Okay? So anyway, that's my camera. Okay.
Did you take these pictures, this picture with that little camera?
All of these pictures were taken with that little camera.
What was that little camera?
Anyway, I do not get a commission. It was a Canon Sure Shot, whatever. Anyway. That's the police. And they'll give you a ticket, I guess, if they catch you speeding.
Is that smog?
Let me tell you about that. Even that little cheap camera has a device in it. It balances white light. It gets rid of all of the smog. It's a smog-free camera, so if you want a smog-free picture, then buy that camera. If you want something closer to reality, don't buy that camera. So, or when you get home, you can do what I do. I put it in the computer and I put the smog back in. So that's my smog. But it looked like that. This was not the China I thought I was going to. That's the hotel where we stayed. That's from my hotel window. We're going out to that college where Pak Chi spoke, and we're riding public transportation. We're getting our subway, paying our subway fares there. Double-decker buses. If you look real close up on that billboard there, you'll see Pak Chi and his editor smile. Photoshop allowed me to add them. There was an ad there. So. And you see this wall? Okay. Okay, we'll get to that later.
Oh my God. Oh my
Yeah. Yeah. You get warmer pizzas from him than you do it here. And old Ronald McDonald. And up there you might see some African American basketball players. And my experience was a little bit different than Ruth's. I get more stares in Spokane when I go through the neighborhoods than I do in China. I was invisible. Okay? Now there's the Culligan Man and the Swin Bicycle Shop. And that's a bus stop there. Pak Chi was raised in there's a storefront there. It's now a flower district, but it was a small neighborhood store when he lived there. That's where he used to live. You know, I don't know what it is. I look at my clothes, you know, and they say made in China. But some kind of way, I thought they packed all that stuff up and put it in a box and sent it to America. I had no idea that they'd be wearing that stuff. On their cell phone. The latest Korean fashions on sale there. And in San Francisco in the morning, in Chinatown, I'd see the people doing the Tai Chi thing, you know? And I thought I'd get some Tai Chi pictures. Well, I only saw one person doing Tai Chi all the time I was in China. They were exercising on equipment like this here in the parks. Oh, excuse me. There'll be another one, the close-up of that equipment later. This is Hong Kong, and you can see the school kids and whatnot in the English dress, the uniforms. Those are the communist kids in Guangzhou. That's their uniform. Look like the gym outfits we used to wear here a few years back. Or street shopping. Tailor. Pick out your fabric. He'll whip you up some clothes and whatnot. He'll patch and mend and take up and do whatever you want done. Now, Guangzhou, it's kind of the manufacturing city of the world. And salesmen from all over the world come to Guangzhou to buy goods. And they stay in that tall hotel where I was at. And what you've seen so far, this is the Chinese, the China and the Chinese people that they see when they do business, where they're going and coming and whatnot in China. Okay, so this is what all the buyers would see. There's some of that modern Chinese equipment. And you can't tear that stuff up, boy. And so my wife took the picture, Diane took the picture of me, and that's Tyler. That was my guide, Tyler, who was showing me around and translating for me there. And Diane had to do some exercises, so I took a picture of her so she wouldn't mix it. She didn't miss her routine and whatnot. She's still. Now, you see these guys over here in these military uniforms? Now, you know, that prejudice that runs through your bones, you know, oh, Lord, is he watching us? Is that the Red Guard? You know, so I said to Pak Chi, I said, Pak Chi, what are those guys doing? Pak Chi laughed. He said, look at their shoes. And I looked at their shoes. You know, it wasn't these exact ones here that I was talking to Pak Chi about. But, some of them had on thongs, and some of them had on boots, and some of them had on gym shoes. Pak Chi said, those are instant rent-a-cops. He said, those are rent-a-cops. He says, they work in security in the stores and things. Okay? So anyway. So here are these people that work a 12-hour day. Yeah. And here's entrepreneurship. So everything ain't owned and run by the communist. This kid here giving us a ride, his dad wanted him to talk and meet with some Americans, and so he offered to drive us around, so he drove us. Wow. Now there are the communists that I've been looking for. You know, but here's some guy at a shop that draws them for you, you know. And I didn't see nobody dressed like that. And they got on my jacket. You know, okay. So then we went to the temple. Our driver there took us to the temple. And I said, Pak Chi, what do you think they're praying about? What do you think they're saying? He says, oh, everybody's praying for prosperity. Everybody want to make more money. So they're all praying for money. Okay? Okay. Mother to be. She's brought flowers and so forth to the altar. A monk and a visitor. Okay. Now the pictures before, I said that's the ones and whatnot that the visitors would see. You see these little red areas? Inside those little red areas, I call the urban villages. Okay? All those skyscrapers that I've been driving through are hollow on the inside. You know, it's like taking a square mile, okay, and we're going to put skyscrapers down Grand Boulevard. We're going to put skyscrapers down Regal. We're going to put skyscrapers down 57th. We're going to put skyscrapers down 29th. And that's what you're going to see. But in the center of that, this is what you're going to see. Oh, those little green areas, there were 3 different communities in the park in front of the hotel. The square went up at the top. There were older folks sitting there, and they were doing traditional dance, playing traditional Chinese music. And the long one, that's the exercise area where they're on that equipment, where I just showed you a picture of myself and my wife exercising. And the little square down there, those were younger guys playing cards in that park. Okay. There's Smile with the big cuffs in her pants leading the way, and I'm in back. Smile took us to the inside those red circles, those red areas. And how do you get in those areas? There's openings, maybe about so wide, most of them are, and you duck back in there into this other world. Or you can go through that store there, go in the front door, come out the back door. You're in another community. Or here's another entryway into a little more wealthy neighborhood back there that he's going back to. Here's another guy going back there, leaving the outside to the inside. Here's going through a store, in the front door and out the back door. Kids have come to work with their parents. They're playing games out there, little computer games. Okay. Okay. You see, you walk around the corner of this building and you see that the new building outside there. And you're down in the inside, and now you're looking up at the skyscraper that encloses that area. Late in the evening, guys playing outside the wall. There's an entrance to that area, to one of those areas. Small shop. There's a few cars. I don't know why. There were lots of cars, a lot of late model cars, a lot of fancy luxury cars. I didn't photograph much of that stuff. You know, you want to pick up some vegetables on your way home for dinner? Some fresh vegetables, they're all over the place. He's working in the store there, waiting for a customer.
School.
Yep, she come to pick up her kid and whatnot. Soccer mom. What did you do today in school? And he's showing her his drawing for the day. There's the wedding district. Those are all wedding dresses. And so there are, I don't know, hundreds of shops down there, just selling wedding dresses. We walked and looked in all the shops. And, okay. On a museum step. Professional photographer doing the wedding picture thing. This is in a little rural area. See, there's a little difference in the classes of the two folks getting their picture taken. This couple here that's getting married and that guy there. You saw the Pizza Hut delivery van, and that's Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? The Pizza Hut motorcycles were three-wheeled. Only three-wheel motorcycles were allowed in the town. So when you see a two-wheel motorcycle, you're out in the rural area. Here's guys playing cards, and there's a lady. What she does is entrepreneur. She's got a few card tables and some chairs and got some canvas and whatnot, and she's in business. You know, capitalism at work. And she lives in that boat there. And somebody said to Pakchi, can you get us on the boat? So Pakchi went and talked to the lady, and we got on the boat. But I just can't go in folks' house taking pictures. You know, a couple of other folks, they took pictures and whatnot, but I don't have any pictures in our house. Well, her husband came home, wanted to know who these people on his boat. And I got a picture of that, but okay. Now, is there anybody here that remembers cowboy movies? Is it politically correct to admit you watch cowboys on television? Okay, well, I watched cowboys on television, and you know when they put the wagons in a circle? Okay? Well, Chinese been putting the wagons in a circle for a long time. And all those little villages that you've been seeing, those are the wagons in a circle, okay? Because folks have been coming and robbing and doing bad things and whatnot, and you always got to watch out for that guy coming down the road. So they build these little entryways, okay? So the farmer comes from here. This is out in the rural area. Farmer comes from here, goes to the field and does his work, but that's where he sleeps at, inside the circle of wagons. She's sitting at the well doing her wash. There's a lot of trash blowing around here. Didn't see any of that in the city. City was spotless. And there was always somebody out there with a broom. But there's a little slower pace of life out here, and so they do it a little differently. You know, I saw this red moon up in the sky, and it was reflected in that water. And so I took a picture. And later on, when we got to driving, that wasn't the moon in the sky that I saw reflected, but that was on a skyscraper in the fog. That was a sign on the side of the skyscraper in the fog. So, yeah. Now, this was built by a homeboy from Chicago. So this guy came to Chicago, sold clothes and sold drugs, legal drugs, pharmacy, in Chicago. This is in the 30s. He went back and built this community. And then the government took it away from him, and it's now kind of like a tourist attraction now, and they've opened it up and they charge you money. And we met some people in here. They had a concession stand there. They rented a horse. You could rent a horse and go for a horse ride. And we're talking to these people, and they said, well, where are you from? And we said, oh, Washington. And so I thought I had to explain, not Washington, D.C., but the state of Washington. They said, oh, we know, Gary Locke. So you can go inside these houses and check them out and see how the people lived in the 1930s and so forth in there. Okay. I went down to dinner in the hotel, and I grabbed a clean T-shirt. I got all these T-shirts with my political feelings and whatnot on them. I guess you've noticed and whatnot. Hope you're voting November. But anyway, this shirt had on it that saying, you know, when they came for the communist, I didn't care because I wasn't a communist. When they came for the trade unionists, I didn't care, you know, because I wasn't a trade unionist. When they came for whoever, you know. And so I'm sitting down there eating, and folks are commenting on my shirt. Now I'm sitting at a table, everybody at the table's communist. And I'm sitting there, and I got this thing that says I'm not a communist. And the way it stretched across my stomach, that was the most pronounced line. I'm not a communist. Oh, Lord, you know. And Pop, she's trying to explain, he's okay, he's a good guy. Don't worry about Bob, you know. And so I said to somebody sitting near me, you know, they said, we're not communist either. What? No, we're socialists, we're communists, we're Chinese social economic progressives. We're not communist. And I said, yeah, Colonel Sanders and Pizza Hut, 7-Eleven, and okay. So anyway, I'm going to talk about those construction workers, these guys at these sites I go out, these hard hats. All my life, I've been a minority. When I lived in an all-black community, I was a minority because my family were house slaves. My grandfather was a cook for the president of the Pennsylvania Railroad. And that was before I was born, but he worked for very wealthy white people, and their kids didn't like their clothes. I always got what they didn't want. So I dressed pretty good in elementary school, and they didn't want a briefcase, and so I got their briefcase. So I was called a professor in elementary school because I carried a briefcase with my lunch in it, and I had knickerbocker pants on, and so I was in trouble all the time. And so I've always lived in these minority communities, you know, where I have to hear things and not hear things. And the construction workers, something was wrong, and they were talking about something that was done wrong, and they said, well, you know what we do? When it's broken and when it ain't done right, we say the Mexican did it. Okay. So I'm listening, you know. I said, now if I call that to his attention, I'm going to lose this job. So there's always that battle and whatnot. When I got into, so some people, the pictures don't look like photographs. Well, my photographer friends, oh Lord, Bob and that Photoshop, you know. Bob is not a straight, Bob, why don't you take straight photographs? Because Bob likes staying in trouble. I went to Brooks Institute. There's a alumni in Brooks. Still here? Is he still here? Rick Singer, the portrait photographer in town. He was here. And that wasn't a fit. Bob is not a commercial photographer. And so I was in trouble at Brooks. And I heard about an art school, California Institute of the Arts. Disney had designed this school before he died and left a bunch of money that when he died, the school would be implemented. Well, Disney was a pretty conservative fellow, but Disney's art was pretty radical. And California Institute of the Arts was a pretty radical art statement when he built that school and brought all the arts and whatnot together. Well, here's Bob, who come from that commercial school down the road, now sitting with all the artists. So now I'm in trouble again. Well, then they had cameras, 35 millimeter photographers don't like 4x5 photographers and 4x5 photographers, the oil painters don't like the watercolorists, the ceramists and all that kind of stuff, So I tried to stay out of that and love them all and whatnot. So I'm mixing medias. And so that's why. Are they photographs? Aren't they photographs? Are they etchings? Aren't they etchings and whatnot? So I was asked to write a piece or to have somebody write a piece about your work. I had to justify what I'm doing. Again. So what I decided to do was, let me ask some people that know something about China. So a friend out at Wentworth introduced me to a scholar and who's lived and been in China and knows a lot about China. So there's a handout out there. I'd like you to take it home with you and see what he has to say about Bob's vision of China. Another thing I did was Pak Chi's been photographing Chinese communities for 40 years. And so there's always been this insider-outsider thing that's going on. I live in a community, okay? I've got a neighbor that's right here right now. If you come to our neighborhood, you'll see two different political persuasions. His signs on his yard and those on mine. I love him to death and he's here. And I've always been in that kind of thing. And his wife, and she's here. She took care of my son when he was a baby. And he got royal treatment. And we agree on nothing politically. Okay? But the best neighbors I've ever had. Okay? So this is what I'm talking about. Because they're going to come for me one day. And I don't know if you've ever been called a communist. Maybe we're past the Cold War and they don't do that anymore, except for Obama. But you see, I've been called a communist. You see. When I went with Dr. King to the South in the Civil Rights Movement, we were outside agitators and communists. Okay? And so everywhere I go, I've been called a communist. And I didn't know what a communist was. So I got to meet some communists on this trip. And I discovered that they're not communist either. So we got to watch that name calling. Okay, and now I guess you don't want to be a Muslim or, Obama's catching it now. Daddy's from Kenya. Oh, Lord. But anyway. Yeah, that's what they told me. That's what the communists have to say about being communist, where I was. So now I want to know, how do you see China now? I invited Anderson, but it's after his bed hour, so Anderson's not here now. So That's who I am. And and the third person I asked to write, I asked somebody that knew something about art and about art history. Dr. Dr. Hawkins, who talked about them in terms of art. So please read those pamphlets. And the first person I asked from Wentworth is Dr. Anthony Clark, who's here. And this is all in writing and printing in the handout out in the lobby. So I won't ask you to read this now, but pick up one and read it on your way home. When I stopped saving the world and preaching, this is what I would like to do. You think they're painterly now? When I grow up,
Don't do that.
Okay. I came in the other day to see the show, and the artists were hanging their work. They were painting those walls over there, and I said, "Oh, I wish I could have the open these walls." And so I went home and I said, "I'm going to be in that show." I went home and I added my work and whatnot to those walls. Okay? So I'm on the wall. I got them big too. But anyway, that's it. Thank you for coming, and I'm so glad to see people from my many lives and whatnot. It's very seldom that I go someplace that I see the mixture. Either I'm in a black community, I'm in the Eastern community, art community, I'm in a political community, and exchange student community, and it's real good to see all my communities and whatnot in the same room at the same time. Thank you for coming. I probably talked too long, but if you got a question, I'll answer them.
Time for a few questions. Anybody have a question for Bob?
Yeah, can we have some light?
No, we can't.
We're stuck.
It's like the technical difficulty marathon. I apologize. Now we can figure out how to do it.
So you have to do it.
Yes,
Do
Max.
you think that you will get another chance to go to China and see some other different parts of it and film it also?
Well, I want to visit the exchange students that I've had over the years, and my finances won't allow me to go to all of them twice. I hope to go to Japan. I'd love to go back to China, but I got some other countries that I got to get to, and I don't have much time now. Yes.
How do you see China 20 years from now?
I don't want to tell anybody to stay like they are, but I think it's going to look pretty much like us here. I think with those differences and whatnot, you know, the reason we go to Boston or we go to a small community and whatnot, now Kmart's moved in, and we all look alike and we all talking alike and we're all doing the same kind of stuff. I see a lot more of that happening in the future. You know, I remember that guy standing in front of the tank, and I got there, you know, and I inquisitively asked folks how they felt about that. And they told me, that guy won.
Good for you.
The guy won that was standing in front. I thought he lost the battle because they beat him up and threw him all in jail. But the people I talked to say a deal was cut. you can have all the capitalism you want, you just stay out of these politics. And everybody I saw has opted for the capitalist lifestyle, Ronald McDonald. And I think they won. Somebody asked would I like to live, or if I lived in China, did I want to be out there on that street side, that public side, or back there in that village? And I answered wrong, because in my head I was saying, you asking me to go back to poverty and I done worked all my life and whatnot to get out of that. And I said, no, but you know what? Folks are a lot better on the inside than out there on the street. That's something.
Yeah, I would, if I just saw the pictures, it doesn't get the impression of being crowded. Were there just not many people in the inside places?
Oh, I don't think it was crowded. But, probably, if I took a head count, but I didn't feel squashed around.
Yeah, fairly.
I felt what you see. That's what I felt. Yes, sir.
There's some form of solarization on your photos. Is that Photoshop, or what were you doing there?
Yeah, I'm a fond believer of Photoshop. Yep, I believe in Photoshop. Because what Photoshop allows me to do, it allows me to mix my worlds. See? So if you say they look like paintings, that's okay with me. You say they look like etchings, that's okay with me. But when I take the picture, it's more like sculpture than painting, because I'm subconsciously leaving things out. I no longer consciously leave things out, but you see there are no landscapes. You'll see that there are no sections of bricks or walls or any abstract, things like that. So I gotta have that person in there. I gotta have some people. And if I was a painter and he's got on a blue shirt, I would have painted red. Photoshop allows me to paint it red. So the colors and things you see are my colors and not always those people that you see in the. So I like Photoshop and manipulation, and I like technology and playing with it. Yes?
Were you able to get any kind of a feeling from people not pro-communist on the Tibetan exiles?
No. I tried to have a political discussion. I tried to ask some political questions, and I'm sitting at this table with a Chinese philosopher, PhD and whatnot, and political scientists, and I've got all these people around me, and I tried to get into these conversations, and he told me, he says, my English is not good enough, and your Chinese is not good enough, and there are no Cliff Note versions. So we didn't have that discussion. Okay?
Interesting answer.
Is that it?
Over here.
Yes, sir.
I've been watching the World Expo in Shanghai very closely, and they're getting some days 500,000 visitors a day. But the images I see on TV, China Central TV, these people are very happy. The pictures that you're showing here, these people aren't smiling or anything. So in your opinion, are the population of China, are they happy people? Or
Well,
not?
these new cameras you got, when you take a picture, and if the person's not smiling, it tells you. And so, I push the button when I see that sign. So maybe I've eliminated everybody in picture because I ain't gonna let this camera tell me what to do. But no,
in general, as a population?
everybody I met or I saw appeared to be happy.
Good.
The only poverty, the only beggars I saw were in front of the temple. And this guy's begging. He's got no legs, or he's burnt from head to toe, or he's got a real serious health problem. I didn't see no guy like the guys at the Vision.
Yeah, you're there walking around
Yeah, I didn't
making
see
it
them.
America.
So I don't know if they're there or not. I don't know. I'm not a politician,
Yeah, yeah.
not a psychologist, sociologist. I'm just Bob going there.
Yeah, Bob, was it your perception that you're seeing a veneer of modernity laying over an old culture? Or did you feel like you're experiencing a culture that's going through a profound change on all levels, and therefore real cultural change, not only a veneer of change?
I think a profound change.
Profound, okay.
Okay. I tell you what I do. When I photograph a neighborhood or someplace in Chicago or anywhere in the United States, I go back and I Google it,
Right.
and I look up the demographic. Now, who have I been looking at? You know, I find out, you know. And so I tried to do that while in China. You know, we went to the computer with this, you know, and I said, well, how much do these people make? I'm saying to the person that's going to put it in the computer. I want to, that's not our business. That's government business. And they were quite happy, or wasn't going to talk about it with me.
Did you see any evidence of solar or wind power being used? Any of that kind of? I've heard that they're very advanced in that, but I wondered if.
No, I saw no solar or anything like that. But I'm only there for 3 weeks, so I don't know.
Any more questions? Thank you all for
Okay.
coming. I'm gonna try it.